Now, China is the biggest smoking country in the world. It's basically addicted to cigarettes right now.
Even the Chinese President Xi Jinping wants Chinese people to quit smoking.
But if that's true, why can't he stop them from smoking?
China consumes about 2.4 trillion cigarettes every year. That means nearly half of all cigarettes sold in the world are smoked in China. You might be thinking, is that just because China has a huge population? But it's not just about the numbers. The percentage is also very high. According to the WHO, about 1 out of every 4 adults in China is a smoker. For men, the smoking rate is well above 40%. In other words, China doesn't just consume a lot of cigarettes because it has a lot of people. It also has a very high smoking rate. Xi Jinping knows how serious the smoking problem is. In 2012, Xi Jinping met Bill Gates in Beijing and talked about smoking. During that meeting, Xi told Gates that he would do something about tobacco. But even today, China remains the largest cigarette-consuming country in the world.
So why doesn't he just ban cigarettes? Well, it's not that easy. The reason is super simple.
The Chinese government makes a huge amount of money from tobacco. Last year, tobacco profits and taxes added up to around $250 billion. That's about 7% of the Chinese government's revenue. It's roughly the same size as China's defense budget. That's an enormous amount of money. China's State Tobacco Monopoly Administration regulates the tobacco industry. At the same time, it also operates China's biggest tobacco company. In simple terms, it's acting as both the referee and the player. This organization is so powerful that it even blocked a nationwide indoor smoking ban that had been proposed back in 2017.
There's the problem of local government finances. Some regions in China are almost dependent on tobacco.
In Kunming, the capital of Yunnan province, more than half of the city's budget in 2024 came from tobacco-related taxes. In Changde, a city in Hunan province, about 20% of all tax revenue came from the tobacco industry. Now imagine Xi Jinping suddenly puts strict limits on tobacco production and sales.
Who gets it first? Local governments, for sure.
Many local governments in China are already struggling because the real estate market has been slowing down. Revenue from land sales has dropped sharply. If tobacco tax revenue disappears as well, some local governments could struggle to pay public workers or maintain welfare programs. China may look like a country where all power is concentrated in the central government, but local governments still play a huge role in keeping regional economies running. If local government finances start collapsing, entire regional economies could suffer, and that would directly threaten the social stability that China values so much. Jobs are another major issue. A huge number of people work in the tobacco industry. There are tobacco farmers, factory workers, distributors, and small shop owners. Millions of people depend on tobacco for their livelihoods, and we're talking about a country that already has serious unemployment problems.
What happens if all of those people suddenly lose their jobs? And how do you control that level of public frustration?
The backlash could become so large that even Xi Jinping might struggle to contain it. But economics isn't the only reason. Smokers themselves would probably push back as well. That's because Chinese people have been smoking for much longer than many people realize. Like most countries, China legally restricts cigarette sales to adults, at least on paper. In reality, things are different. According to one study, 56.2% of current smokers started smoking at age 18 or younger. The study also found that smoking risks were higher in rural areas than in urban areas for both men and women. China is also known for having a very tolerant smoking culture. Now imagine trying to introduce strict anti-smoking policies in a country where smoking has become part of the culture. People who have smoked their entire lives may not react kindly if the government suddenly starts cracking down. There could be even nationwide protests, and that's probably the last thing Xi Jinping wants. So should China just keep letting people smoke? That's not a great option either. It's bad for smokers, and it's also bad for the Chinese government. The biggest issue is healthcare and welfare costs. When people get sick because of smoking, they can't work. They stop being productive workers. And China's already heading toward a demographic cliff because of extremely low birth rates. That means slower economic growth in the future. Just look at China's birth rate. It's been falling for years. In 2024, China's fertility rate remained far below the 2.1 births per woman needed to maintain the population. China's population has already started shrinking, and hundreds of millions of working-age people are expected to disappear from the labor force over the coming decades. In other words, China is no longer a country worried about having too many people. It's becoming a country worried about not having enough workers. Healthcare costs are another problem. If people develop cancer and other serious diseases, society has to pay for treatment. Millions of people die every year from smoking-related diseases. Cases of lung cancer, heart disease, stroke, and COPD continue to rise.
Eventually, those medical costs become a burden on public healthcare systems and government finances. So it's not just Xi Jinping personally wanting people to quit smoking. There are larger national interests involved.
In the end, China is stuck in a dilemma. It needs to reduce smoking rates to avoid labor shortages and exploding healthcare costs. But the more aggressively it pushes anti-smoking policies, the more it risks disrupting systems that already exist. Local government finances could weaken, unemployment could rise, tax revenue could fall, and smokers themselves could push back. All of those things threaten the social stability China cares about so much.
My personal view is that this is really a conflict between short-term benefits and long-term benefits.
In the short term, allowing smoking can help prevent social unrest and public dissatisfaction. But from a long-term perspective, it's not a sustainable strategy. If China doesn't gradually reduce smoking rates, the long-term costs could become enormous. From the perspective of maintaining the country, China eventually has to reduce smoking. Gradually increasing tobacco taxes without provoking a major backlash could be one possible solution. So what choice should Xi Jinping make?
Subscribe to my channel and help me create sharper contents in the future. Thank you guys.